for your
General
questions.
Wilson, you just said you needed 3,300 airmen. Are you talking about new airmen coming in the next, what period of time?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's 3,300 per year over the next 5 years.
Over the next 5 years.
Yes,
of them, how many are actually pilots?
I can give you a breakdown
Well,
of that,
we know
Chairman.
the top line figures of those, but are you making any headway from the last time you and I talked? We had this committee hearing which you attended, and that was one of the serious problems that the Air Force has.
Yeah, our pilot production is certainly a serious challenge going forward. We're still about 2,000 pilots short. We have an aircrew crisis task force underway, led by a general officer who shows up to work every day with nothing on his mind but how do we fix this problem.
Okay, yeah, well, we've all talked about this. We did dodge a bullet in terms of CRs, and I think with what we have done, we're going to be in pretty good shape in terms of fiscal year 18 and 19, but then we got we go back to fiscal year 20, which we really need to be trying to figure out a way to do these things more in advance. I want to ask one question of all of you, the same question. Now, we know what's happened to us with our 17 years of sustained fightings. We know the problems that we have. That seems to be all we talk about. But I would like to have you kind of, from your perspective, give us the cost of not addressing these readiness issues. This is a readiness committee. Readiness is what's important. That relates to risk and lives, starting with you.
Well, as far as the risk, is readiness is something, I equate it to pushing a boulder up a hill. And when you stop pushing, the boulder rolls down. And for a while there, we weren't getting the appropriate funding to properly maintain our units at the proper level. We are getting that funding right now, but it needs to sustain because we need to kind of fill in the holes from readiness that we let develop over the last couple of years when we were not getting the timely, predictable, and sustained funding that we needed.
Yeah. Admiral Moran, what would you say to that?
Yes, sir. There are so many components to readiness. You could pick at any one of them and find areas where we need to work harder on and where the lack of resources, especially the last several years, has really been a difficult challenge for all of us. But I think about it as a capital-intensive service, and the amount of maintenance and upgrades and modernization to pace the threat or get out in front of the threat is an enormous cost, and that's part of our readiness component. If you can't get the ships underway, the submarines underway, or the airplanes flying, then you're going to have readiness problems across the board. I think that's obvious. What always pays for those big capital investments in our business are people and munitions, and we've taken risk in those areas over the last 10 years because the resources haven't been there. Now we're starting to buy that back, but when I think about the people, it's also the readiness component, which talks to experience and building intuition on a battlefield, at sea, in the air. And those things you can't buy back. Once you've passed by a year or two of that kind of proficiency and that kind of training, it's very difficult to buy it back unless you get it in situ at the time when the person going through that training needs it the most.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You know, General Walters, we hear more, at least I hear more about the readiness and what it's taking in both the Marines and the Army than I do some of the other services. How do you come out on this?
Sir, readiness, if you view it as a commodity, you build it, it has a shelf life because it's all about the people. So combine unstable funding and a drawdown, then you lose people and you really lose opportunity. So the opportunity costs of not training over time to build back up, it might be that sergeant that you let out who's had 8 years of experience. Now I got to start over with a private and make him a sergeant. So that's where the condition we find ourselves in right now with squad leaders, and that's where our attention is. But truly, lost opportunity and lost time are something. It's not a one-for-one recovery. So I'll echo my mates here that stable funding over time at the right amount and with a paying attention to our people will get us out of the hole, and we have a plan for that, sir.
Okay, I appreciate that. And General Wilson, you already answered that question in your opening statement. Let me get back to the budget thing and the problem that we're looking at as we move forward. With the recent budget deal and the pending passage of the Appropriations Act for fiscal year 18, we're already 5 months into the fiscal year, and I'm concerned that the services will be unable to execute 12 months of money and 6 months remaining, and yet the need is there. If each one of you kind of address that timing problem that is there that you're going to have to be facing.
Yeah, that's, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's certainly we appreciate the authorizations for the money that we need for readiness. Now we need to get into the hands of our units so they can spend it. And the sooner we can do that, the better off we're going to be. If we're spending 55% of funds in the last 4 months, some of the things we'd like to do as far as predictable funding and long-term lead items and contracting, we don't get the same rigor that we would like to get if we had it sooner.
I guess the good news, Mr. Chairman, is that we've had 10 years at this to learn how to operate on less than a full year's authorizations or appropriations. So we are ready
Not
to.
that you're enjoying it that much.
No, sir, we're not enjoying it at all. But not to make light of it, it is an important question that we're spending a lot of time developing plans, but I think we're going to need some help with the appropriators on how we spend that money. It's not going to go across evenly. That the ad is so significant that we're going to have to look at having the ability to transfer some of that money from account to account, and we'll.
You foresee a problem in that respect?
Well, I'm saying as we go, as we start to make those plans come to fruition, we may find that we can execute more in one area than another faster, and we would like to have some authorities to be able to move the money around as we go and be able to inform Congress as we're doing it.
General Waters.
Yes, sir. As you noted, we have a year's worth of money adds in 18 and 5 months to spend it. It might help if the appropriators can give us some flexibility so we can spend 18 money in 19 and feather in the plan and give us some authorities to, as Admiral Moran said, move money around where we're executing. So there's lots of things we can do with a little more authority to match the responsibilities that the service chiefs have.
And they're aware of that, and they have the authority to make those changes.
Yes, sir.
Any comments?
Chairman, I
on that,
don't have nothing to add. We're going to do our best to spend it in that time frame.